Hi team, Katie here from Equestrian Movement, and today we are talking about submission to the bit versus acceptance of contact. So submission to the bit and acceptance of contact are generally used interchangeably in the equestrian industry, but they definitely do not mean the same thing. So when we're talking about submission to the bit, submission to contact, we are talking about pressure release, we're talking about reinforcement. So when we break down our training tools to figure out what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it, it's how you're going to guide the behavior, how you're going to mark the behavior, and how you're going to motivate them to do it again. So in the case of submission to bit pressure, we're guiding them into it with the bit pressure, and then it's the release of pressure that both is supposed to mark that that's what we want, plus motivates them to do it again. Technically, the release of bit pressure is what we're using to motivate our horses to do it again. So what happens when we're looking at submission to bit pressure, our horse is looking for relief from pressure. They're looking for the release of pressure. So what does that mean? It means that our horse is going to either work slightly behind the bit, or they're going to just try and pop their head up off of contact and work with their head above the bit. So we're looking at, or they're potentially going to go super heavy into your hands and try and pull through and snatch through the contact because they don't like the pressure in the first place. So when we're talking about submission to the bit, we're talking about the horse seeking the release of pressure. There is no release of pressure when we're working with our horse in a working frame, when we're working in contact. So what we're really looking for when our horse is working in a working frame is actually acceptance of contact. And so by this stage, our horses should be really confident in pressure is not a punishment, it's not aversive, it's just a tool for communication and to seek that pressure to talk to us and to seek guidance and support and direction from us. So for our horse to have acceptance of contact, they have to have trust and confidence in our hands. To have trust and confidence in our hands, we have to be really sensitive to their mouth and tuned into the feel of what they like and what they don't like. What we're looking at when we pick that contact up is, are they switching their underneck on? Or if we're picking that contact up and they're switching the underneck on, at the very least, they're feeling our hands are going to unbalance them. And so they have lost trust and confidence in the contact and in our hand. So what typically happens is we say, my horse is heavy, my horse is strong, my horse is pulling, my horse isn't giving. And so what your horse is actually saying is, your hands are too strong, your hands are too pulling, your hands aren't giving. I need to switch my underneck on, or I'm going to fall over. I'm not going to be able to balance myself. And so then we end up writing submission to the bit, which is an acceptance of contact. So they just flex away at the third vertebrae. They're still on the forehand. They're still balancing through their underneck. And now they're working behind the bit. So this is challenging because then how are we going to move forward from here? The purpose of our contact is not to establish frame. It's not to establish submission to bit pressure. It's actually to get this to connect the haunches. So through bit pressure, you should be feeling the hocks soften so that you can ask them to sit deeper into their haunches, because this is where their balance, their maneuverability, their ability to change stride and gait comes from. And also, if you want to move further up the training scale, this is what we need for collection. And then this is also what we're going to need if we're jumping higher and we're expecting them to use themselves with more power, that we are able to connect and, air quotation marks, control, because we're not actually controlling it. It's not technically submission because we're seeking the acceptance of contact. We're seeking the conversation in our hands through the acceptance of that pressure, finding what our horses like through feel of contact, and having their trust and confidence in our hands. So second to that, if we're unbalanced in the saddle, this is why we spend so much time at our riding school with developing a centered independent seat over a strong, secure, stable lower leg, is that we need to be really balanced in the saddle to be able to do this with our hands so that our horse can have trust and confidence in her hands. So this is typically why you would see, people get stuck at novice, right? They can't move into the collection work because they've created the working frame through submission to the bit. And so now they don't know how to kind of create impulsion and create energy within that contact. So it does well enough to get you, the marks in prelim and novice because you're holding that frame that the judges are looking for, but it's not helpful for your horse, and it's going to limit your ability to move forward and progress. So one of our favorite exercises for developing acceptance of contact is actually doing our in-hand work. We're going to have a look at some video of us doing this in-hand work and chat about why I love it so much. So in this video, we can see Sully. She's doing, her in-hand work, getting ready to back and be riding her. So the acceptance of contact, we're going to start with just basic cueing for pressure and release. The rein is a word, the word is follow. 2 reins is a word, the word is stop. And so we're looking at her being able to navigate the turns with balance without feeling put off balance by the rein contact. And that's why she keeps stopping here, is because she feels the bit pressure and, she knows that the answer is to follow, but she also has a little bit of stifle lock. And so we end up seeing the stifle lock and the bit pressure putting her off balance a little bit into the turns here. So these are the kinds of things that we want to be aware of in the saddle, is how is the bit pressure actually influencing our horse's balance. Like, on the ground is one thing where they're not trying to balance us as well, but then we're going to get on their back and they've got to counterbalance us, and then they've got to balance us at speed. So one of the biggest restrictions to the working frame is actually the horse engaging their underneck to kind of control and stabilize their balance. So once we have, this is our basic pressure release of getting the acceptance of contact through cueing. Once our horses understand the rein is a word, the word is follow, then we're going to encourage them to seek contact, seek our hands for direction. So when we're working in hand with Hunter here, you can see that there is a lot more acceptance of contact and understanding of cueing at this point, but the underneck muscle is still switched on to brace against the bit pressure. So what we're going to be doing to open up his back and get him working over his back properly and engaging his top line is we're going to be doing our in-hand work to encourage the seeking of contact. So if we get them seeking the contact, seeking our hands, reaching down into that stretch, and then opening up through their back, releasing their top line muscle so that we can stack it up into posture correctly, we're going to get the release of the underneck there as he goes down into stretch. And this is really the purpose of our long and lows, that the less the horse is using its shoulders and underneck to stabilize its balance, the deeper they can stretch, and therefore the better they can engage their top line. And so then we're looking for the acceptance of contact as we gather him up, and that he's not switching that underneck on, and then we see the release of the shoulders, and that's where our relaxation and swing is, and that's where our impulsion is. That's it from me for today. Until next time, happy trails.